So the story of Sting in WWE is not as bad as some people say. I'm not gonna revisit history and say, oh, this was amazing and whatever, but there was a lot of segments he was involved in that I enjoyed so much. But from a storyline point of view, there was a lot of flaws. There was a lot of missed opportunities, like he never faced the Undertaker. Obviously, he got injured against Seth Rollins, which was really unfortunate, and then he lost against Triple H, which I'm going to break that whole storyline down in a few moments. But for a bit of backstory, I grew up as a massive wrestling fan in the early 2000s, and Sting was the main guy in WCW at that point. I had all the action figures, the video games, I'd play as Sting. So when he finally joined WWE in 2014, I was so excited to see what he was going to do. And a little bit of a history lesson. I don't want to insult anyone's intelligence because I'm sure a lot of you listening or watching, if you're watching this on YouTube, will already know all of this. But Sting in the 90s was started the decade as like a bleach blonde surfer type ultimate babyface character, and he ended the decade as the mysterious, dark, ominous figure in WCW with the white face paint, the dark hair, and a really, really cool character with a huge amount of aura. The word that everyone loves these days, aura. If you looked up aura in a dictionary in 1999, there'd be a picture of Sting and a picture of The Undertaker, which is where I'm going next with this. Because I'm not going to say Undertaker was like the WWE version of Sting, but he was WWE's dark, ominous, mysterious character. So for years and years, people wanted these two characters to finally meet, whether it was in WWE or wherever, but that was the dream match that everybody wanted. So fast forward to 2001, and Vince McMahon, WWE owner, buys his own competition, WCW, and within 2 years, by 2003, pretty much all the top stars from WCW had joined WWE, or at least made some appearances. Even if it didn't stay for long, they at least appeared on WWE TV, but Sting didn't. So I remember watching an interview years later with Sting where he explained all of this, and he said he didn't want to go to WWE because he saw a segment with Booker T and The Rock. And The Rock said in the segment to Booker T, this is during a promo, I think it was on SmackDown, because I remember watching it when I was a kid. And The Rock said to Booker T, who in the blue hell are you? And Sting was watching it at home, and he thought, I do not want to join WWE if that's how they treat WCW guys, because, of course, The Rock, and I'm not blaming The Rock here, because I'm sure he was just doing what he was told as part of the storyline, but The Rock could have bigged up Booker T and said, you know, you're an X amount of time champion, you've done all this, and I've respected your work for years and whatever, but instead he's just saying, who are you? Like, I don't even know who you are. So Sting didn't want to join WWE and be treated like that. He didn't want to be a nobody. He wanted his legacy to be respected. So he ended up joining TNA, like the new company in the early 2000s, remained with them for over a decade, and then by 2014 he was a free agent. So he signed a WWE merchandise deal. I believe that was like the first thing, apart from maybe like a website interview or something. This was the first time he was doing stuff with WWE. And then he was also I think it was like a pre-order exclusive for the 2K15 video game. So at that point, wrestling fans are thinking, well, of course he's going to join WWE as a character or maybe even wrestle. So, heading into Survivor Series 2014, it was obvious, like the rumours were rampant that that is what was going to happen and that Sting was going to be on the show in some capacity. Because I remember it so well that everyone just knew Sting would be there, but what is he going to do? So, the big story heading into Survivor Series 2014 was Team Cena versus Team Authority. And the stipulation was if Team Cena lost, well, John Cena was one of the team members, but if Team Cena lost, he would keep his job, but his 4 teammates would get fired, which is a ridiculous stipulation because they should fire Cena as well if his team loses, but whatever. And then if Team Authority lost, so this was Triple H and Stephanie, they were in power, they were just evil, like really evil people for over a year. And if Team Authority lost, then Team Authority then the Authority would no longer be in power. So high stakes heading into Survivor Series. And Team Cena had Cena was on the team, Dolph Ziggler, Eric Rowan, Ryback, and The Big Show. And then Team Authority was led by Seth Rollins, but Triple H and Stephanie were at ringside, but Seth Rollins really was like the leader of the team. And they also had Corporate Kane, they had Rusev, Mark Henry, and Luke Harper. So I won't go through this match by move, elimination by elimination, because I'll do that on a future Survivor Series 2014 episode. But the gist of this match, really, the big story was that immediately Big Show knocked out Mark Henry within seconds, pinned him. So massive shock right at the start of the match. The Authority down to 4 members instantly. And then midway through the match, in the least surprising moment in the history of wrestling, the Big Show turns heel. So he knocks out John Cena. Cena gets pinned by Rollins, and then the Authority are 3-1 up. And the only member left on Team Cena is Dolph Ziggler, who at the time was the most misused, miscast, everything wrestler in the world. WWE, they had someone who was incredible, one of the best wrestlers around, the best seller I've ever seen, I think, in wrestling, apart from maybe Brock Lesnar. And Ziggler is suddenly the only person on this team who can save his team's jobs, except for Cena, who was going to keep his job regardless for some reason. But anyway, Ziggler overcomes the Authority. He eliminates Kane, eliminates Luke Harper, and then it comes down to Ziggler and Seth Rollins at the end. And Ziggler hits a zigzag on Rollins, and it looks like he's about to get the win, but then Triple H pulls the referee out the ring and beats the referee up, beats up Ziggler, hits him with a pedigree, and then places Seth Rollins' body over Ziggler. And at this point, the crooked referee, Scott Armstrong, who helped the Authority in 2013 and in 2014, Triple H calls him down to the ring. So as Scott Armstrong begins to make his count, we hear the music. The crow, the core of the crow. I believe it's a core, the noise that a crow makes. I hope it is, because I'm going to keep on saying that. So the core of the crow sounds, and out comes Sting. And first of all, the presentation of Sting is amazing. I love the darkness of it all. The Titantron, how it's just a picture of Sting's face, is so bloody cool. It is so cool, especially because WWE, full of, especially early 2010s, full of these corny, cringeworthy characters sometimes, except for the Shield, the Wyatt family, but a lot of it was fun, family-friendly entertainment. So then when you get Sting, the man of aura, comes down to the ring. The Vigilante is what he was nicknamed. So he comes down to the ring. He punches Scott Armstrong, the referee. He gets into the ring, has this epic stare down with Triple H, and he hits Triple H with a Scorpion Death Drop, and then places Ziggler's body over Seth Rollins. Another referee comes down, counts the pin, and Team Authority are out of power because Ziggler gets the win for Team Cena, so they all keep their jobs. And Sting has screwed the Authority, basically, and helped these people keep their jobs, and he's helped Team Cena win. Now, I'll say, actually, right after the match, Triple H and Stephanie throw a massive strop in the middle of a ring, and that's how Survivor Series ends. And it is a fun segment, and in fairness, if I were to go back and watch any Survivor Series match ever, one of these long, drawn-out 5-on-5 elimination matches, it would definitely be this one. Because this was the most entertaining I've ever seen in terms of just crazy drama and the Big Show's his heel turn. See, I nearly said face turn then because he's had so many face and heel turns. I can't even remember. I can't even keep up as I'm trying to tell the story. But from the early elimination of Mark Henry, then the Big Show's heel turn, then the drama at the end with Sting, it was all really, really cool. However, my main point with this is that, why is Sting attacking Triple H? Because I don't think, someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think we ever really got an explanation of why any of this was happening. Why after so many years of Sting not being in WWE, why is he targeting Triple H, and why is he targeting the Authority? Why is he so desperate for Ryback, Eric Rowan, the other 2 members who names are escaping me, Big Show and Dolph Ziggler? Why is he so desperate for those guys to keep their jobs that he needs to come out and get involved in this match? Was he just sitting around at home, in the build-up to Survivor Series, and thinking, I really hope Ryback doesn't lose his job. I'm going to go to Survivor Series, and I'm going to make sure that these guys keep their jobs? Or was he watching WWE TV in the build-up to this and thinking, God, I really don't like Triple H. I don't like the Authority. Yeah, I hope they're not in power anymore. Right, I need to do something about this. Like, and I'm just talking from a storyline point of view. Like, what is the purpose of a Sting character? Like, why is he getting involved with Triple H? Like, what's the point? Because I don't think he ever said, because he didn't speak in WWE for months and months and months until right before WrestleMania, if I remember correctly. And he didn't say then, like, okay, this is why I'm doing this. So, again, it's just a bit of a lack of logic, but I enjoyed it all. It just didn't make much sense. So if he did come into WWE, and as I mentioned earlier with The Undertaker, and why this was such a dream match, and why even now, if you mention Sting and WWE, people will say, why did he never face The Undertaker? Because the obvious thing when he came into WWE would be, well, Sting's come to WWE to face The Undertaker, because it's the one match that this legendary, iconic, vigilante Sting character has never had. Well, I believe he did face Mark Calloway, or whatever Undertaker was called. He wasn't called Mark Calloway, but whatever Mark Calloway was called before WWE, they did face off in NWA or somewhere. I don't know. Somebody, a wrestling historian, can tell me where they faced off. But they have faced each other before, just not in WWE. And certainly not the Sting and Undertaker characters. So if Sting came in and he faced The Undertaker, well, it would have made sense if he immediately said, right, this is why I'm in WWE, I want to face The Undertaker. Cool. Then everyone's going to understand. And as much as I enjoyed the segments with Triple H, and a lot of the storytelling, a lot, like, people were criticising it a lot, I enjoyed the segments, but it didn't make a lot of sense, because why, after so many years, is Sting going, you know what, I want to cost Triple H this match, and I don't want the Authority to be in power, so I'm going to get involved in this main event. It's like, okay, but why? Why, of all the matches, of all the times in the history of WWE, has this pushed you to the point of, I need to do something about this? So, anyway, this storyline takes a few twists and turns, because the Authority end up back in power, because they basically gaslight John Cena. And I hate the word gaslighting, but they completely gaslight John Cena into basically putting him back in power, because they say that Seth Rollins is going to break Edge's neck if John Cena doesn't put the Authority back in power. And again, that doesn't make much sense, because Cena and Edge were arch rivals back in the day. But anyway, all these years later, Cena now feels bad for Edge that he might get his neck broken. So he says, okay, Authority, I'll give you back your power, just don't hurt Edge. So the Authority are back in power. They fire Dolph Ziggler, Eric Rowan, and Ryback. So then there's an episode of Raw. This is when Sting comes back in January of 2015. And it's Cena versus Kane, Big Show, and Seth Rollins. And this is actually a cool moment. So, as much as a lot of this story didn't make much sense, at least this was a cool moment. So Sting appears on the screen during this match, and it looks like it's just a picture of him. And then suddenly he starts moving. So even the commentators are like, no, that's not Sting, that's a picture of Sting. I think that's what JBL was saying on commentary. And then Sting starts to walk out to the entrance ramp, and everyone just obviously stares at Sting. Cena gets a quick pinfall win over Seth Rollins, and that means he earns back Ryback, Rowan, and Ziggler's jobs. And he just points down at Triple H. So, again, this is all leading to Sting and Triple H at WrestleMania. Everybody knows it, but again, we don't really know why they're feuding, because everyone thought Sting was going to face The Undertaker. So Undertaker ends up facing Bray Wyatt at WrestleMania 31, and it's Sting versus Triple H. So the build-up is good. Like, I enjoyed the segments. Like I said, because Sting is just charismatic, just being in the ring and just generally being involved in WWE segments, I enjoyed all of them. But yeah, it didn't. The story was lacking. But there was a cool moment ahead of WrestleMania at Fastlane, when they had like this stare off in the middle of a ring and a little bit of a physical altercation, Triple H and Sting. And then the moment actually when Sting accepted the challenge from Triple H to face him at WrestleMania, I thought was pretty cool, because Triple H had been saying, right, I want to face you, Sting, and he hadn't got an answer. And then Triple H was in the middle of a ring, I think it was on Raw, and then it just appeared on the screen and it just said, I accept, in writing. Sting wasn't even there, I don't think, but there was a fake Sting in the crowd, or like on the up the steps near one of the entranceways in the crowd, and then Triple H was like losing his mind, like, oh my god, I don't want to face Sting, I'm scared. Because that really was the story. It was that Sting returned and Triple H was scared of him. Like, even at Fastlane, when Triple H had his sledgehammer and Sting had his baseball bat, Sting put his baseball bat up into Triple H's throat next to the turnbuckle, and Triple H just dropped his sledgehammer straight away, which basically signified this man is scared of Sting. And every step of the way, leading into WrestleMania, Sting got the upper hand on Triple H. I don't think there was even one segment where Triple H like beat up Sting or did something where Sting looked bad. Everything was done to build Sting up. Even a week or two before WrestleMania, Sting formed this alliance with Randy Orton because Randy Orton, a former Authority member, was feuding with Seth Rollins because they were facing each other at WrestleMania 31. And I think it was Seth Rollins, Big Show, Kane, and J&J Security had surrounded the ring with just Randy Orton in it. And then Sting's music hit. The arena just went dark, and then when the lights came back on, it was Sting and Randy Orton together, and then they beat everybody up. So Sting just looked amazing ahead of WrestleMania. And then going into it, you'd think, okay, you still expect Sting to win because he's been gone for not gone. I mean, he'd never been in WWE, but finally, you don't bring Sting into WWE to have him lose his first match. Certainly not WrestleMania against Triple H, because why? Like, if it was against The Undertaker and The Undertaker beat Sting, you're like, that's fine. But Triple H to beat Sting, it didn't make sense, even though Triple H looked bad for those months leading into WrestleMania because he just seemed scared of Sting. Then it makes sense for the Triple H character to then win, so he doesn't look weak. But at that point of his career, who cares? Just lose to Sting and get on with it. So, but I will say though, at the time, and I'll get into the match more in a second, but just to get straight to the outcome rather than go through the match first and do everything in completely the wrong order. But I feel like I didn't really mind as much, as a lot of fans were like absolutely outraged by this. At the time, I didn't really care because I enjoyed it all. Even though, like I said, the story didn't make any sense. Why Sting and Triple H were even feuding didn't make any sense. The outcome didn't make any sense. But I still enjoyed it because I just liked seeing Sting in WWE. Because I feel like I was easily pleased because I was such a massive WWE fan. But yeah, the entire match made no sense. Triple H's entrance was cool because he had like this whole Terminator entrance. And Sting just being at WrestleMania was a huge spectacle in itself. And I remember the arena was I don't even want to guess what the arena was called because I don't want to get it wrong, but this huge outdoor arena was so cool. I think it was Levi Stadium. I'll just say that. It might be wrong, but let's say it's Levi Stadium. But Sting making his entrance down a huge ramp, it was just a cool spectacle. But then the match was fine. Like, Sting didn't embarrass himself, Triple H was good in the match, but the story of the match was absolutely horrendous. So the NWO side with Sting, even though back in the WCW days they feuded with each other, but now suddenly the NWO are on Sting's side. Hulk Hogan, Kevin Nash and Scott Hall are at ringside supporting Sting. And then Triple H has D-Generation X on his side. Sean Waltman, Billy Gunn, Road Dogg and Shawn Michaels are all at ringside supporting Triple H. And they're all getting involved in these little confrontations at ringside. And then, even though, like I said, it makes no sense. Because Sting wasn't aligned with those guys in WCW. He feuded with them. That's what the whole story was. Starrcade 97. Like, when Sting turned up looking pale, apparently, according to Bischoff, and then that's why, according to Eric Bischoff, and that's why they ended up not having Sting win the title that night from Hogan. But anyway, we could go into WCW history another time, but yeah, this didn't make any sense. And then the outcome, the finish to the match, is that Triple H... This was a cool moment when Triple H had his sledgehammer in front of him and Sting knocked through the middle of a sledgehammer with a bat, and then it broke in half. I mean, it was a cool little visual, but then for Triple H to use part of that sledgehammer to just hit Sting with it anyway and then get the 1, 2, 3, and that's how the match ends, is unbelievably underwhelming. So, after the match, they shake hands. And again, like, I didn't mind it at the time. So I know now when I'm talking about it years later, I'm kind of just slating it all because none of it really made sense. But watching it at the time as a fan, I enjoyed it. And then this handshake at the end, I'm like, okay, bit of respect, cool, whatever. And then that was it. So Sting then disappears for months and months and months. And WrestleMania, I believe, was in March of 2015. Fast forward now to August, so almost 5 months on, August the 24th episode of Raw. And here we go. Now we're back to some fun times in this storyline. So, Seth Rollins, the night before at SummerSlam, he's still an Authority member at this point. He is like the absolute weasel of the Authority. He's the World Heavyweight Champion. And the night before, he beat John Cena in a title versus title match to win the US title because Jon Stewart, the host of SummerSlam, the American TV show host, gets involved, costs Cena the match. And again, ridiculous. I enjoyed it. It was fun. But Seth Rollins wins the US title, so he's now a double champion. WWE World Heavyweight Champion and US Champion. So the next night on Raw, August 24th, 2015, Seth Rollins is getting a statue unveiled in the middle of a ring. And Triple H and Stephanie are on one side of a ring. Seth Rollins is on the other side, and they have this statue in the middle. A big black cloak over the statue, and a big drum roll is playing to unveil the statue. This is great, by the way. This is WWE at its best. This kind of stuff, at least it is to me. I know a lot of people would say, "No, I love the 5-star in-ring classics." I love corny, cheesy stuff like this. So the drum roll's going off. The cloak is unveiled. There is no statue of Seth Rollins. There's just Sting stood there. After a 5-month absence, here he is. And I wish I could tell you what happens next, but I've actually forgotten. I think Triple H and Stephanie, well, I know what Triple H and Stephanie did. They both stood motionless for about 20 seconds, just pointing with a shocked look on their face at this statue that actually turns out to be Sting. And Triple H is hilarious here, because he doesn't move. Like, his face, honestly, you need to go watch this if you've never seen it. Or if you're watching the YouTube version, I'll have a picture of it up as I'm talking about it. But Triple H is just constantly for like 20 seconds. And I think it ends with Sting throwing Rollins out the ring or something, and Triple H and Stephanie just bail it. And that's it. So that sets up the story, because Sting holds up the World Heavyweight Championship. The WWE World Heavyweight Championship, as it was called at the time, I think. And then it's like, whoa. So Sting, I mean, he doesn't deserve a title match because he's only ever had one WWE match and he lost it. But suddenly it's like, yeah, we want Sting to win the title. So this storyline is actually really entertaining, I think. And the next week, Sting, I think it was the next week, they actually did make a statue for Seth Rollins. And Sting throws it in the trash in like a big truck, and it crushes the statue, and that's the end of the statue. The statue lasted 1 or 2 weeks, and it's gone. And the only other thing about this storyline, which is a little bit bizarre, but I quite enjoyed Sting's promo, where it was so eccentric, and I don't know what other word to use, but he was just really, really going for it in this promo. And he's saying, like, Seth Rollins, you're not the man, you're a little boy, and you're half the man that Triple H is. But it's alright if he says that once. Well, I don't know if it is, because I don't know why he's bigging up Triple H so much after the long feud that they had. But he's really putting over Triple H. Like, 3 times in this promo, he says he has the utmost respect for Triple H, even though Triple H was still the ultimate heel. So it didn't really make sense why Sting was putting over Triple H so much. But he was, anyway. He did it 3 times. And the only other thing that Sting did before the match against Rollins, which was at Night of Champions, was he had a match on Raw against Big Show, who was also an Authority member at the time, dating all the way back to the Survivor Series heel turn. I'm surprised he didn't turn face again before this moment, but anyway, 9 months later he's still a heel, part of the Authority, and it's supposed to just be a one-on-one match, but of course, with it being the Authority, people get involved, and I think it ended up being Big Show and Rollins against Sting and Cena, because Cena was getting a US title rematch at Night of Champions against Rollins. So Rollins was doing double duty at Night of Champions, And I think the matches were back to back as well at the end of a show. So he was facing Cena in a US title match, and then Sting in the world title match at the end. So fast forward to Night of Champions, and Cena beats Rollins. Oh, sorry, I forgot to say about the Raw match, actually. So Sting makes Rollins tap out at the end of the Raw tag match. So it ends up being Cena and Sting versus Rollins and Big Show. And yeah, Sting makes Rollins tap out. So that is his one proper victory. Although technically he beat Big Show as well via DQ. So really, he got 2 wins under his belt in one night. And then we go to Night of Champions. So Rollins loses the US title to Cena, and then he faces Sting in the main event. So this is where it goes really badly wrong for Sting. Not just the character, but the man, Steve Borden, behind the character. Because physically, like, he suffers a horrific injury during the match, but it's like, it's uncertain how it all happens, because it's his neck, and like, kind of like a nerve issue, I believe is what it was. And at one point, Rollins throws him against the ropes, and shortly after a buckle bomb, I think, and Sting comes back off the ropes, and he just collapses. Not collapses where he actually can't move, but physically he is just, he can't keep running. Like, he can't run against the other side of a ring to get to the ropes, because he is so physically just can't do it. So Rollins, not long after that, just rolls him up, gets a 1-2-3. He doesn't even hit like a pedigree or anything. He just gets the 1-2-3 with a quick pinfall, and that's it. Like, that is the end of Sting's career. At least it was until that point, until he obviously came back years later in AEW, but in WWE, that was the end of his career. And I think that show actually ended with Sheamus trying to cash in on Seth Rollins, and then Kane, because he was the Money in the Bank holder at the time, Sheamus, and then Kane came out and stopped the cash-in from happening. Or did he stop the cash-in from happening? Either way, it set up Kane versus Seth Rollins at the next event. At Hell in a Cell, I think it was, because Kane was becoming a face around this time. But anyway, back to Sting. This is the point I want to make with Sting. So, he ends up going in the Hall of Fame the next year, in 2016, and he's not really seen in WWE again for years, even though he's on the books at WWE. He's like an ambassador or something, and he's still got all the merch with WWE, but they don't even use him, like, ever. I don't know, obviously we don't know what happens, but it's like they never even brought him out to do anything, or to be at special events, or have any kind of an on-screen role with the company, until I think it was 2019, when it was Ric Flair's bloody birthday party, where it never happened because Batista attacked him, I think it was, backstage, to sort of set up his rivalry with Triple H. But Sting was in the ring, and I remember thinking at the time, okay, they've brought people back for this Ric Flair birthday party thing, and Sting is one of the people who, because he barely does anything, it was like a bit of a surprise that Sting was even involved, and he was in the ring, and everyone's waiting for Ric Flair to come out. And I was thinking at the time, does Sting know what's going to happen here? Like, does he know what the storyline is, that Ric Flair's actually going to get beaten up backstage by Batista? There's not even going to be a birthday party. Nothing in the ring is going to happen, and you're all just going to go walk backstage in a few minutes. Because, honestly, if I don't know, I'd be interested to know what Sting says about that if he ever gets asked about it in an interview, because I do remember thinking at the time, like, does he know this is going to happen? So, anyway, I think that was the last time Sting ever appeared on WWE TV, except maybe the odd documentary on the WWE Network. And I think a lot of it, even though when Goldberg talks about the whole thing about being a WCW guy, and he often says, well, I was a WCW guy, so of course I get treated like this in WWE, and it's almost like, I mean, I don't want to be too insulting against Goldberg here, but it's almost like he's got a little bit of a victim complex going back 25, 30 years for WCW, WWE, and he thinks he'll always be treated badly by WWE just because he was in WCW. But with Sting, like, well, with Goldberg, I don't think that, because he's had so many great WWE moments, like beating Lesnar in 86 seconds, and all the title wins he had. I mean, beating The Fiend and all this stuff. Whereas Sting, I actually do think it was like a WCW thing, because Sting didn't want to be in WWE. He sort of rejected them, And then years later, when he joined, even Vince McMahon said on a conference call, I can't remember the exact wording of it, but he was basically saying we're doing Sting a favor. Like he said, so the exact wording was obscurity. It was like we've brought Sting out of obscurity and turned him into a star again. He said something along those lines. He definitely used the word obscurity. Like we've brought him from his obscurity to WrestleMania, which again, it's almost like Vince thought he was doing Sting a favor, when really it's like, no, you've brought him in after so many years, and you've put him in this story that doesn't really make any sense. None of it made any sense. There was some fun moments in there, like the statue moment I thought was amazing. I really, really loved that. Even when he pushed the statue into the trash was fun. The match at WrestleMania was an amazing spectacle. The moment at Survivor Series when he debuted was fun. Again, didn't make any sense. Like, why is he even feuding with Triple H? But it was the Undertaker thing. Like, they had to reference this at some point. And to be honest, like, the match wouldn't have even been good. Because they were, what, early to mid-50s, both of them at the time. It would have been the oldest match in history. Like, older than when Undertaker and Goldberg faced each other. But, so I don't even know if the match would have been good, but at least reference it. At least have a face-off between them. Just do something with these characters. Especially when Sting was still signed with WWE, I think until 2020, the year when Undertaker retired. So really, they had almost 6 years to do something with these two characters. Even if it wasn't a match, just do something with them. But they never did. And that was it. And they brought out something on the WWE YouTube channel a few years ago, like WWE Reimagined, Sting and Undertaker. And because they were teasing it on social media for a few days leading up to it, everyone was thinking it was going to lead to something. And it wasn't. It was like I think it was just like a talking head thing on YouTube with people just imagining what might happen if they ever faced each other. And they never did. So, there we go. That's the story of Sting's time in WWE. I don't think I've missed too much out because he didn't do a lot apart from everything I've just said. He didn't have that many segments, but that's my take on it. I think it was good. Could have been a lot better, but overall was kind of underwhelming. And I think I'm being very, very polite saying that.